government to act and provide more resources. We're talking to local law enforcement, we're talking to the border community mayors, and we're going to deploy resources when they're needed.
Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs calling on the federal government for help as a surge of migrants forces the closure of one border crossing in her state. As many as 1,000 migrants are waiting to begin the asylum process at the Lukeville crossing. Some have been waiting for days there. Good evening. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. The influx has forced a shuffling of Border Patrol resources, and today all vehicle crossings were stopped at that port of entry. Fox 10's Justin Lum shows us how agents and migrants are managing.
We have talked to different migrants from different countries, some of them waiting days to get to the collection center, and you can see behind me what these lines look like. Sections of lines down the border wall going about the length of a football field. Now, I spoke to Customs and Border Protection as we arrived. Once these migrants are transported and taken into custody, the next step is processing at either the Ajo or Yuma stations before going to Tucson and by via plane or bus sent to another sector to be detained to seek asylum. Encounters here at the Tucson sector have gone up 140% in the fiscal year of 2024 compared to last year. We have seen much more single adults waiting here, many of them for days. Vulnerable people, being families of women and children, took priority here, and we have seen them in the front waiting to be transported. Now they are all gone and ready for their next step. Now, earlier I spoke with a man named Emmanuel from Nigeria. He's been here for 3 days or so, telling me he traveled through 11 countries to get to this point.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I'll survive this night again. It's so cold and there's no food. There's no water. Like the water, you have to wait until you get this. There's like, if you're like shelter, you know, maybe tent and food, like some humanitarian government here pass some apples out, you know, it help. Like, there's no, you don't understand, like staying out 4 days, 5 days without food, without water.
And something we've also seen are migrants collecting firewood because the night does get very cold. We've seen them share snacks and granola bars, things like that, to make it through another day. Meanwhile, Governor Katie Hobbs spoke to the press earlier today, speaking specifically about the Lukeville port of entry, and she said she would not be sending any state resources out here. She said the federal government needs to step up and address the border crisis, securing the border. In Lukeville, Justin Lum, Fox 10 News.
And not far away in Nogales, traffic flowed smoothly at the Mariposa port of entry. There was some concern about a potential for a backup there as drivers were redirected away from Lukeville. By late afternoon, though, there were no delays or disruptions that were noticed there. And addressing the influx of migrants at the southern border has become a sticking point for Congress as lawmakers continue to debate a wide-ranging funding bill.
People don't want to be involved in paying for securing a foreign country's border. They want our border secured first, and that's not happening.
Lawmakers are going back and forth over the Biden administration's national security package, which includes aid to Israel and Ukraine. But some Republicans say they won't back the measure unless it also includes funding for increased security at the U.S.-Mexico border and stricter asylum laws. In that bill, the administration has asked Congress for $14 billion to address issues at the U.S.-Mexico border. That money would be used to expedite some migrant removals and hire more Customs and Border Protection staff members. In Vancouver, Washington, 5 members of one family were found dead over the weekend in what authorities believe was a murder-suicide. As reporter Amal Elhel tells us, police were called to that home after someone received a suspicious text message from one of the family members.
What started as a welfare check at a home in Vancouver eventually turned into what authorities are now investigating as an apparent murder-suicide. It garnered a police presence that people who live in the area tell us they have never seen before and never would have expected to see in a neighborhood like this that they say is generally pretty quiet.
It was kind of crazy. I mean, there was cops everywhere.
J.D. Hartman has lived in the area near Northeast 92nd Street and 115th Avenue for a few months and says the dozens of police units that filled up nearly the entire neighborhood was something he didn't expect when moving in.
It's kind of crazy just because it's a quiet neighborhood, you know what I mean? I pass the house every day and it's it's not something you really think of.
That all changed when the Clark County Sheriff's Office responded to the area for a welfare check. They got a call from someone asking authorities to check on their family after receiving a text from another family member which said they were planning to harm others in the home. When they got there, deputies tried to contact people inside the home but couldn't get a hold of anyone.
They were on the loudspeaker for a good hour or two, asking about a welfare check, making sure everybody's okay. They just want people to come out of the house and check on people. Second SWAT team came in about 2 or 3 hours later, and then once they tried to breach, we all kind of knew something was up because they came straight back out.
Authorities eventually used a drone to enter the home where they found 5 people dead.
They sent the drone in, kind of hear them breaking out glass and stuff, and then it just all kind of went silent. We all got that eerie feeling.
Deputies have not yet identified the people who were killed nor the person they believe killed them, but say all 5 family members had been shot, including the person they believe is the killer.
It's sad, you know what I mean? A lot of people just don't really, mental health it's like a real issue, and a lot of people just don't really see it as a big issue, you know what I mean? And I feel like if we focus on it a little bit more, we won't have these situations.
While the investigation is ongoing, deputies say there is no danger to the community. Reporting in Vancouver, Aman Al-Hal, Fox 12 Oregon.
Faculty at the California State University system kicked off a series of one-day strikes today, calling for better working conditions. They walked picket lines today at Cal Poly Pomona, east of Los Angeles, and tomorrow staff at San Francisco State University will stage a walkout. A strike will be held at CSU Los Angeles on Wednesday and then at Sacramento State on Thursday. The union wants a 12% pay increase for this year with additional raises in the following years. CSU administrators have countered with a 15% increase over 3 years.
I mean, it's the most important thing for a teacher is that your students have to be okay. And so what we're demanding now is not only that their teachers are paid appropriately, but that they have adequate mental health care on campus, that they have gender-neutral bathrooms, that they just have access to the education they're actually paying for.
The CSU values its faculty and is committed to ensuring that we give them a fair and competitive salary, but again, balanced on and being financially sustainable for the system to be able to provide services.
The union represents more than 29,000 faculty, including professors, lecturers, librarians, counselors, and coaches. President Biden is planning to visit California and Nevada later this week. The president's trip to the West Coast will begin with a stop in Las Vegas on Friday, but the White House has not yet said exactly what events the president is planning to attend there. Following his stop in Las Vegas, the president is expected to head to Los Angeles to take part in campaign fundraisers. Some new details are emerging tonight about the man suspected of killing 3 homeless people in Southern California. Jared Powell appeared in court today for the first time, charged with those killings. As Fox 11's Christy Fajardo reports, he has a long history of trouble with the law.
Facing charges for 4 murders in 4 days, Jared Joseph Powell was in an LA courtroom where his arraignment was postponed. But Fox 11 has learned even before his alleged killing spree, the 33-year-old had a long rap sheet in LA and San Bernardino counties, stemming back to at least 2016, including arrests for false imprisonment, burglary, and a felony conviction for an assault so violent, prosecutors said it was likely to produce great bodily injury.
This individual, I am convinced, would still be moving about the city and the region and killing individuals, innocent individuals, helpless individuals.
That was LAPD Chief Michael Moore on Saturday after announcing they had arrested the man in this blurry security camera image who had murdered 3 unhoused men in 3 different parts of Los Angeles while they slept alone and outdoors. Police say it was this new 2024 BMW that was his undoing. It was spotted leaving the scene of the follow-home robbery and murder of Nicholas Cymbalin in San Dimas last Tuesday. The plate was entered into a database, and Beverly Hills police spotted the car and arrested him on Wednesday. He was already in custody last Friday when the LAPD put out a warning to the unhoused. But the crimes were so dissimilar, detectives didn't immediately connect them.
It is a striking set of circumstances that is puzzling, and we are committed to understanding more about it in the days and weeks ahead.
Police say the gun found with Powell and the BMW is what tied all 4 cases to each other and got a killer off the streets.
The individual responsible for these horrific crimes was found, caught, and will now be held accountable.
And that was Fox 11's Christy Fajardo reporting for us tonight. Police in Las Vegas are continuing to search tonight for the person who shot 5 homeless people at an encampment. One of those victims died in the Friday night shooting. Another remains in critical condition tonight. The 3 other shooting victims are all expected to recover. Investigators have not yet said what they believe led to the shooting. They do believe that suspect drove away from the scene in a black sedan.
You definitely want to be aware of the roads, the back roads, because sometimes those can be flooded and typically do flood most winters.
Heavy rain expected across the Pacific Northwest all throughout this week. Coming up tonight, see how people in that region are preparing for potential flooding.
You can see it's kind of wet there. They've got flood advisories, flood watches, flood warning potential as we go through this week, plus the rest of the West Coast. I'll be back with that forecast.
Also coming up tonight, investigators say a search of one Northern California home revealed hundreds of pounds of marijuana. What else authorities found during that search? People in the Pacific Northwest are bracing for what's expected to be several days of stormy weather. These are live images tonight from Seattle, and it really gives you a sense of the fog and the rain that people have been dealing with in that part of the country. The biggest concern with these storms is the potential for some serious flooding. Fox 13's Nia Wong shows us how people in the region are preparing.
Communities are on alert, especially when it comes to multiple rivers, which are expected to rapidly rise in the coming days. Cooler months can warm up business at Everything Tea in downtown Snohomish.
Things definitely pick up.
But with the flood watch now in effect, Elizabeth Artadi knows the power of the Snohomish River just behind the tea shop, among other neighboring businesses.
When the flood was like the worst it's been recorded, the logs on the river would hit the bottom of the bridge.
The Snohomish County One Rain page provides real-time flood information. It shows the Snohomish River hit under 13 feet as of Sunday night, but come Tuesday, the National Weather Service says it could potentially crest at 29 feet, which is considered a major flooding stage.
It's happened a few times before where it's gotten pretty high up around this area. Sometimes you can't even walk down there.
When heavy rain hits western Washington, Riley and Kendall Barrow aren't too concerned driving downtown, but they are mindful of surrounding areas.
So if you're going out towards Monroe, you definitely want to be aware of the roads, the back roads, because sometimes those can be flooded and typically do flood most winters.
The National Weather Service says flooding is possible for low farmlands and several roads, including the Snohomish-Monroe Highway and low areas of the lower Snohomish Valley.
I'm a relatively new driver, so hoping for the best.
The Snohomish County Department of Emergency Management encourages residents to pay attention to weather reports, avoid driving in areas where there's flooding, and check the Snohomish County Public Safety Hub's flooding page.
And that was Fox 13's Nia Wong reporting for us tonight. Rain is not the only concern in the Pacific Northwest. This is a live look at Mount Hood, Oregon, and you can see those same systems are dumping a whole lot of snow up in the mountains. The snow could increase the risk for flooding as it begins to melt later on this week. That is one concern there in that region. KTVU Chief Meteorologist Bill Martin is tracking conditions in the Pacific Northwest. And Bill, these storms are going to just keep on coming throughout the week.
Yeah, and they have been coming, Alex. Really, the week prior to this was continued rain. So we're starting to get into this setup where we're looking at the potential for not just flooding, there's flood advisories, flood watches, but we're also looking at the potential for mudslides, issues like that, because there's ground saturation in this area, and as well as higher elevation snow. This is an El Nino year, and so we're seeing this warmer weather, so you're getting higher snow levels, but you're getting copious amounts of snow at those higher levels. And so you're going to see the potential for avalanches and things like that as we get the rest of this week. This activity is going to continue slamming into the Pacific Northwest for the next 4 or 5 days, and maybe beyond that, and maybe 7 days. And everybody south, especially from about Eureka down to Los Angeles, would love to see some rain, but not happening. It's all staying to the north, and that's how the rest of this week goes. So temperatures around the area have been pretty mild to the south and pretty moderate to the north. Again, this is kind of a warm weather system. Here are some of the next through Thursday, 4 or 5 inches of rain. That's in Seattle. But in the hills, in the coastal hills, in the Olympic Peninsula, the rain is really going to be coming down, so those amounts could easily be doubled. Over a foot of rain will fall. It has fallen in many places along the Olympic range there. So keep an eye on that for you. As we look at the temperature in, I guess let me fast forward my thing here. My computer just jammed up a little bit. But as we look at this, we got, okay, now we're looking in Seattle. 53 degrees today was the high. Temperatures tomorrow will be about the same. In San Francisco, 63 degrees, been kind of warm, right? Pretty mild, especially south. Down in LA, Los Angeles, here at 77 degrees. So very, very mild to warm conditions. And this continues, this pattern, pretty much the rest of this week. So what you got now, if you're in Denver or Phoenix, it's pretty much going to continue. What's not going to continue is the rain for areas south of Cape Mendocino. These are the forecast areas pretty much for the West Coast as best we can get it to you. And you can see it's all up north, Seattle, rain, rain, rain all across there. But San Francisco, we get some rain in San Francisco probably on Wednesday, a little bit into Thursday, but that's about as far south as that rain goes. There's your forecast.
All right, Bill, thank you. In Northern California, authorities seized roughly 800 pounds of marijuana from a home in the community of Mountain Ranch. The Calaveras County Sheriff's Office says deputies found the illegally grown marijuana back on November 15th while executing a search warrant at the home. 40-year-old Adam Kowalczyk was arrested and charged with illegal marijuana cultivation and sales. Deputies said several guns were also found at that home, and the investigation is ongoing. Tonight, the FBI is hoping a new high-tech rendering will help solve a decades-old homicide case. The victim found inside a barrel at Lake Mead near Las Vegas. That discovery was made last year as an ongoing drought caused water levels to recede at the lake. Fox 5's Kim Passoff explains how conditions at the lake help to preserve evidence in this investigation.
Our hopes is to put the composite out there and see if we can get any good matches.
If you have a family member or friend who went missing in the 70s or 80s and looked like this, the Clark County coroner wants to hear from you, as this murder victim found in a barrel on the shore of Lake Mead remains unidentified.
As good as a DNA profile is, it's only as good as what you have to compare it to. So obviously the next steps would be to get this information out to the community in hopes that we have some good links of individuals that could be considered for testing.
Right now, this is an ongoing investigation.
In May last year, Hemingway Harbor was blocked off with crime scene tape after a family out enjoying the lake discovered the human remains. This as the lake was reaching record lows and revealing its secrets that for decades lay below the water's surface. Homicide investigators telling Fox 5 40 years ago where the barrel was found was roughly 100 feet underwater and several hundred yards from shore.
Someone had to have a boat and someone had to, put someone in the barrel and push them off the boat.
Clothing worn by the victim gives a clear picture of when he may have been killed, specifically his shoes, which were made in the mid to late 70s. Police believe the murder took place sometime between the late 70s and early 80s. The victim's clothes were so well preserved in the cold water, investigators were even able to read the labels.
Anytime you have remains that have been exposed to the elements, it makes it incredibly challenging to get an ID.
That is what Clark County Coroner Melanie Rouse told Fox 5 last year when her office began the daunting task of trying to identify the remains that sat at the bottom of the lake for decades, now given a face by recreation experts.
The process of reconstruction does require looking at the skeletal remains and using both software programs and forensic artists.
She is hopeful these new facial approximations created by the FBI's lab in Quantico, Virginia, will lead to an ID of the victim now only known as Hemingway Doe.
And that was Fox 5's Kim Passoff reporting tonight. The remains of 3 other bodies were also found at Lake Mead last year as water levels reached historic lows. Only the case of the body found in the barrel is believed to be a homicide. Coming up tonight on West Coast Wrap, we will have to wait a bit longer to see new renderings of the A's proposed Las Vegas ballpark, the tragic event that delayed tonight's much-anticipated reveal. Also, Gen Z getting credit for popularizing Oxford Dictionary's Word of the Year. Coming up tonight, the word that describes something a lot of people would like to have. Baseball fans will need to wait a while longer to see new images of what the A's proposed Las Vegas ballpark will look like. According to the Las Vegas Sun, the team has postponed tonight's event to reveal updated ballpark renderings out of respect for 2 Nevada state troopers who were killed in a hit-and-run crash in Las Vegas last week. The team has not yet announced a new date for that event. The new images are set to be part of a celebration of Major League Baseball's recent approval of plans to relocate the team from Oakland to Las Vegas. A fire that destroyed an old military hangar in Southern California has finally been extinguished nearly a month after it started. That hangar in Tustin in Orange County caught fire back in November, but several flare-ups continued to happen. Authorities said on Friday that the final hotspot had finally been put out. Now we turn to a potential rebound for the housing market, and some new figures from Realtor.com are highlighting several West Coast cities where home sales are expected to rise next year. Fox's Jerry Willis has the details tonight on where researchers think buying and selling will take off after a rough 2023.
U.S. housing markets that saw the biggest sales declines in 2023 are projected to achieve double-digit sales growth in the new year. Realtor.com, which shares ownership with this station, says those markets include the Northeast and Midwest.
Homes are still much more affordable there than in other parts of the country, and so not as many buyers are held back.
The other major grouping of markets expected to do well is in Southern California, where home sales have been sluggish.
Even though if we compare this to the pre-pandemic period of 2017 to 2019, home sales in California are still expected to be much lower. They are going to see a nice rebound in 2024.
Oxnard, Riverside, Bakersfield, San Diego, and Sacramento are among the Cali markets slated to see double-digit sales growth. On average, the 5 metro areas are expected to have sales growth of 13.1% next year.
As we look ahead to 2024, one of the things we expect to see nationwide is that mortgage rates will continue their recent descent, perhaps getting all the way to 6.5% at the end of the year. And that should help home sales in Southern California, which is a particularly interest rate sensitive part of the country.
Realtor.com says Las Vegas and Springfield, Massachusetts are also expected to see a double-digit jump in sales activity in 2024. In New York, Jerry Willis, Fox Business.
All right, finally tonight, the Oxford Dictionary wants to make sure it has enough Riz to keep up with the times in 2023. That is the word of the year from Oxford University Press, who publishes the dictionary. Riz is spelled like you see it there, R-I-Z-Z, and it's a popular word with Gen Z, those between the ages of 11 and 26 right now. Riz is used to describe a person's ability to attract or enthrall another person. It is short for charisma. Now, Riz beat out 3 other finalists, which included Swiftie, which is, of course, a loyal fan of Taylor Swift. That does it for West Coast Wrap tonight. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a great night.